Hi, my name is Charles Borges de Oliveira. In this video, we'll be covering how to install Old Stock 2. We'll start with the easy method, the manual method, as well as the embedded method. Next, we'll show how to run the basic version, as well as the pro version. Then we'll go on to talk about how to scale the effects. And then finally, we'll show how to use Old Stock 2 in a graphic design setting. So let's begin. There are three methods to installing Old Stock 2. There's the easy method, the manual method, as well as the embedded method. So let's start with the easy method. I've got Adobe Illustrator CS6 open, and everything I show in this will work on Adobe Illustrator CS3 on up to Adobe Illustrator CC. So I'm going to go over here to File, and I'm going to click Open. And I have the Old Stock folder on my desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and double click that. And you'll see there's Actions, Graphic Styles, and you'll see an Old Stock 2 Adobe Illustrator file. Let's go ahead and open that. So I'm selecting the Old Stock 2 file, and I'll click Open. And there you go. That's the easy method. If I click on graphic styles, you'll notice that all the graphic styles are embedded in this file, as well as the swatches. I included some custom swatches that we'll cover later on in the video. So the next thing we need to do is go Window and click the Actions panel. And you'll notice that mine's blank. Yours might have the Illustrator default actions already in it. I just gone ahead and selected all of them and deleted them. So let's go ahead and load the actions for Old Stock 2. So I'm going to click on this little drop down menu here, and I'm going to go down to Load Actions. And I'm going to locate my desktop, and I'm going to locate the Old Stock 2 folder. And you'll see two folders that say Graphic Styles and Actions. Let's go ahead and click the Actions, and you'll see that there's Basic and Pro. So if you're a beginner, I highly recommend using the basic actions for Old Stock 2. It's pretty much automatic. It's just a matter of pressing play in the actions panel, but it does allow you to define the size of the outline. So I'm going to go ahead and click Pro just for this demonstration. And I'm going to select the left Pro version, and I'll hit Open. And now Adobe Illustrator is loading up all the actions here. And let's go ahead and load the right side as well. So I'm going to repeat what I did earlier. I'm going to click this little drop down menu, hit Load Actions, and I'll go ahead and click on the right actions here and hit Open. And once again, Adobe Illustrator is loading the actions. I just want to make a note. When you load the actions, Adobe Illustrator will retain your actions, so you don't always have to load it every time you open Adobe Illustrator. They'll always be there for you. The only time you might have issues is if Adobe Illustrator crashes. You'll probably have to go back and reload the actions. But generally this is just a one-time thing unless you manually delete them. Okay, so that's the easy method. Now we'll go ahead and cover the manual method. Okay, for the manual method, I've got Adobe Illustrator pulled up here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. So I'll click File, and I'm going to say New. And this is very important. Before you begin your new document, Illustrator might default to RGB. We want to go ahead and change that to CMYK. The Old Stock 2 actions will not work in RGB. It has to be CMYK. If you create any artwork in CMYK, you can always revert back to RGB. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And I've got a blank artboard here. And the next method we need to do is we need to manually load the graphic styles. Old Stock 2's actions will not work without the graphic styles. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on Graphic Styles. And again, I'm going to be using that little drop down menu. And I'm going to say Open Graphic Style Library. And I'll click Other Library. And I'm going to locate my Old Stock 2 folder. And you'll notice that we have those two folders in there, the actions, which we covered, we're going to go ahead and click Graphic Styles. So I'm going to go ahead and select it and hit Open. And what it does is it opens up the Graphic Styles uh, panel here. Now we need to get all of these into the Graphic Styles panel over here. The actions won't work if these are only in the Graphic Styles panel here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the Control key down, and if you're on a Mac, go ahead and hit Command, and I'm going to go ahead and select the very first one, and now I'm going to go ahead and release, and I'm going to press the Shift key, and I'm going to select the very last one. So what that does is it selects all of our graphic styles. So again, we have to get these over to here. So I'm going to click the little drop down menu and click Add to Graphic Styles, and that's it. If your actions are already loaded, you're ready to go ahead and use Old Stock 2. Next videos, we're going to show how to do the embedded method. Okay, for the last installation method, which is the embedded method, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So the first thing we want to do is go to our Old Stock 2 folder, and we're going to go ahead and click on Graphic Styles, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the graphic styles here. So I'll go ahead and hit copy, and we can go ahead and close that. And for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and located my Adobe folder on my C drive. So what you'll want to do is locate where your Adobe is installed. So if I click on Adobe, you'll see that I've got various versions of Illustrator here. Since I'll be using CS6 for the demo, I'm going to show where you install the graphic styles into Illustrator. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Illustrator folder, and I'm going to go to Presets, and I'm using the English version of Illustrator, so I'll go ahead and double click that. And now you'll see a bunch of folders here. The one we want is graphic styles, so I'll go ahead and double click that, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it into this folder here. And now it's asking me if I can provide administration rights to this. I'll just hit continue. Okay, so now we've got Old Stock 2 copied into Adobe Illustrator's graphic styles folder. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. So I'll just say new. And again, make sure that you're in CMYK if you want to use Old Stock 2. Okay, so anytime you're using Adobe Illustrator, this embedded method makes it so you don't always have to locate the graphic styles. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got the graphic styles panel open here. And I'm going to click the little drop down menu and say Open Graphic Style Library. Now you'll notice it has a bunch of the defaults here. You'll also see Old Stock 2 is embedded into Illustrator. So let's go ahead and click on that, and it opens up our Old Stock 2 Graphic Styles panel here. I'm going to go ahead and open that. I'm going to hold the Control key down or Command key on the Mac and select the very first one. And now I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select the very last one. Okay, we need to get all of these into here. So let's go ahead and say Add to Graphic Styles. And if you've already loaded your actions, then you're pretty much good to go. If not, I'll just recap it. Click this little drop down menu, Load Actions, locate the Old Stock 2 folder, and we're going to click Actions and choose whether you want Basic or Pro, and go ahead and load them into your Actions panel. And now you should be ready to run your first action. Okay, in this video we're going to show how to run our first action. Now I've gone ahead and opened up oldstock2.ai, and if you're following along, go ahead and load that file up, and you'll see we have a blank canvas here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our Actions panel pulled up here. So I'm going to go Window, Actions, and if you have actions already in there that are default to Illustrator, that's fine. I just went ahead and deleted mine. And now we're going to go ahead and load our set of actions. So I'm going to go to this little drop down menu and I'm going to click Load Actions. And I'm in the Old Stock 2 folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click the basic one, the basic folder. And we're going to click Old Stock 2 Left Basic. So let's go ahead and open that. And we'll let Illustrator load up the set of actions here. Okay, so we've got Old Stock 2 Left Basic open. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the Type tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to click on the artboard. And if you're following along, we're going to be using Mirrored Pro, which is a default Illustrator font. And I'm going to change the weight to bold. And I'm going to set my height to 1 inch. If you're using points, it would be 72 point. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the character panel, and I'm going to open up the kerning. I'm going to set it to 25. So if you're following along, go ahead and do that. And now let's type out some text. So I'm going to type out the word hello in all caps. And I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay. So again, if you're following along, we're using Mirrored Pro. The weight was bold. We're set to 1 inch. And we opened up the kerning to 25. And we typed out the word hello with an exclamation mark. So in the Old Stock 2 Actions panel here, we're going to go ahead and choose Shadow Outline with Cast 2. So again, if you're following along, go ahead and select that. And if you've never run an action before, it's very simple. Once you load your actions in, just go ahead and choose which one you want. And then the only button down here you have to be concerned with is the play button, which is this little triangle here. So let's go ahead and press play. But before we do, I want to make sure that everyone has the selection tool selected. If you try to run the actions here with the Type tool, they will not work. You have to use the selection tool. So once we have the selection tool selected, make sure we select our text here. And I'm going to go ahead and run Shadow Outline with Cast 2. So I'll go ahead and press play. Okay, now this dialog box is coming up. The reason why we have an offset path dialog box is because we chose the action that have outlines. Shadow with Cast 1 through 7 do not have an outline, so you will not get this dialog box. Okay. In this offset path dialog box, you'll see the word preview. By default, it comes unchecked. So let's go ahead and check that. And we can now see how big the outline is going to be. In this field right here, you would plug in your value for either small or large outline. But for this video, let's just keep it at the default of 0.0264. And we're just going to click OK. Okay, so now Old Stock 2 is going to get busy and go to work here and produce a nice shadow with a highlight as well as a cast and an outline. Okay, so now that's done. Before we continue on, I'd like to talk about these actions here. The first one is Shadow No Cast. So what that's going to do, it's going to produce the shade here, and it's going to produce it all the way up to the letter. There will not be an outline, and there won't be a cast shadow as well. Shadow Outline No Cast would basically look like that. It would not have the cast shadow. The next 7 here is Shadow with Cast. So again, that's just having the shadow go all the way up to the letter with no outline. And then you have 7 different casts to choose from. The first one is really tight to the letter, and as you progress down to 7, it really throws that cast shadow out. Okay, the next 7 are Shadow Outline with Cast 1 through 7, and we just ran number 2, so you can see how that looks here. Again, 1 would be a tighter cast shadow, and 7 would be a longer cast shadow. Okay, the next 5 is Inside Shadow. So what this does is any object that we select, it'll produce an inside shadow. We're going to go ahead and show that here in a minute. Okay, the next one is inside shadow with outline. So what that's going to do is it's going to produce an outline around the letter as well as an inside shadow. Okay, the next one is one color shade. Now what that does is it's just going to produce one solid color shade here. The next one is one color shade, retain highlight. So what that's going to do is it's going to produce a one color shade, but it's also going to keep our highlights. And then the last one is shadow transparent. We're going to show that a little bit later on in the video as well. So let's go ahead and select inside shadow. But before we run it, we have to do a few things. I'm going to go ahead and select the text here. And I'm going to go ahead and go down to the layers panel. If yours is on the sidebar, just go ahead and click it. And you'll see this little drop down menu here. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and I'm going to say new layer. And before we run the action, if we want to run inside shadow, we have to do it on the object in its own separate layer. Now the reason being is if we ran inside shadow right now, it would put an inside shadow on every single object, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and select the text here, and I'm going to go edit, copy, and I'm going to go ahead and lock the layer that has all this artwork, which is layer 1. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and select layer 2, and if you're following along, go up to edit, paste in front. Okay, so what that does is that takes the text that we copied and it applies it directly in the place that it was copied from. Okay, so now we've got our text here. Let's go ahead and run our action. So I'm going to be using inside shadow. I've got my text selected with the selection tool here, and I'm going to go ahead and press play. Okay, if you get this little window here that says the object create outlines is not currently available, that's not an error. What that's saying is it could not take the type or the text that we had and convert it to an outline because it's already been created into an outline. So just hit continue. Okay, so now we've got our inside shadow. Now I'd like to show how the shadow transparent works. What this action does, it's going to take this inside shadow as well as the cast shadow and make it transparent. This is nice if we apply colors to this. The shadow, the color will come through where the shade or the shadow is at. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock our artwork layer here. And I'm just going to go ahead and flatten the artwork here. Okay, so now everything is on our artboard that is selectable. Let's go ahead and run shadow transparent. So I'm just going to go ahead and select everything here and I'll press play. And there we go. Now we've got a transparent shadow as well as a transparent inside shadow. So let's have a little fun here and throw some colors into this. I'm just going to go ahead and create a little background here. And I'm going to send it to back. If you're following along, you can have the box selected and then go Object, Arrange, Send to Back. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw some color on this. I'm going to change the background color, and I'm going to use the swatches that are provided in the old stock 2 file. So I'm going to choose this nice red color here. And you'll see that the transparency on the cast shadow comes through. So this is a really nice feature. So let's go ahead and throw some colors on here. I'm going to go ahead and select the bottom part of the shade here. And I'm going to go ahead and use this orange color. And now I'm going to select the highlight. And before I go any further, I'd like to just point out the nice feature about old stock 2. And if you're a professional graphic designer, you'll appreciate this. Everything is selected and grouped for you, which is a really nice feature to have. So I'm going to go ahead and select the highlight here, and I'm going to go ahead and select this light orange color. And for the outline, I'm going to go ahead and use white just to give it a little pop here. Now don't forget we have an inside shadow here, but you can't see it. So let's go ahead and select our text, and I'm going to choose this nice blue color here. Okay, so now you can see that since that shadow is transparent, it's the colors coming through. Gives it a really nice effect. So this is our first action run. The next video we're going to show is how to use the Pro version of Old Stock 2. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cover what the Pro version is. So I'm going to go ahead and, if you haven't done already, you might want to minimize the Old Stock 2 left basic. And I just click this little triangle here. And now I'm going to go up to this little drop down menu and I'm going to say load actions. And we're going to do it the same way you did previously to load actions. I'm going to locate my folder here, which is Old Stock 2. And I'm going to go and hit actions. And I'm going to do Pro. And I'm going to choose Old Stock 2 Left Pro. Okay, so Illustrator now just loaded the Pro version. The Pro and the Basic have the exact same actions in them. The only difference is the Pro version allows you to interact and basically get the cleanest artwork you possibly can. That's what we always strive for as designers and type designers, is we want our artwork to be as clean as possible. So let's go ahead, and I'm using the type tool here, and if you're following along, we're using Mirrored Pro. The weight, I have it set to bold, and I'm at 1 inch or 72 point, and I have 25 for my kerning. So this time we're going to type out the word signs, S-I-G-N-S, and I'm going to select the selection tool. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and select Shadow with Outline with Cast 3, and I'll go ahead and select that. Now, we're going to run through the action, and we're just going to click OK every time the action asks us to interact with the artwork. We're going to run through it first, and then we're going to redo it again, and you'll be able to see why the action is asking you to interact. So let's go ahead and run it, and we're just going to say OK on the outline here. Okay, we're just going to say OK and press play. We're not concerned about the dialog boxes at this point. Okay, we'll press play again. Okay, so by pressing OK and play and just kind of going through this really quickly, we pretty much reenacted what the basic version does. Now, the reason why I did that is I wanted to show some things here. You'll notice here that we have a highlight. Now, this highlight color shouldn't be here. This should be the same color as the darker shade. Same as well as here. We have a highlight here, here, and so forth. The reason that is when Illustrator creates an outline, it creates an extra point, and you can see that by this extra point here and an extra point here. When we run the extrude and bevel, it sees that point and it thinks it's a raised ridge, so it's going to produce a highlight to it. Technically it shouldn't. So this is where the Pro version comes into play. It allows us to really get in there and select those and let Old Stock know that those should be the darker shade. And also, when we run the action, it'll ask us to look for the offending colors, as well as when we do the cast, it'll say delete any stray points. Right now, our goal is to get the cleanest possible artwork as we can. So let's go ahead and rerun the action, but this time we're going to interact with the action. So I'm going to go ahead and just type out the word signs again. And we're going to run the action. And we're going to say OK on the outline. Okay, so let's analyze what's going on here. It says click on the offending colors and click Object Hide Selection. And then it's asking us delete any stray objects. If you have any stray objects, now is the time to just delete. Lets you really get in there and be picky. But for now, we're just going to do the offending colors. So you'll see the offending colors come out as these dark colors here. That lets you know that, hey, these are the offending colors. So it's really easy to spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the first one, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down. And still holding the Shift key, I'm going to go ahead and select all these offending colors. Okay, now we're going to go up to the top here to Object, and we're going to go Hide Selection. Or you could do the shortcut Control 3 PC, Command 3 on a Mac. Okay, so let's go ahead and press play in the Actions panel. And we're going to move on to the second dialog box here. Okay, so now it's saying delete stray objects. Click play to continue. So let's go ahead and do that. Basically, we have these little strays here. Now, there's two ways to do this. I have everything selected, and if I hold the Shift key down, I can deselect the objects I want to keep. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm deselecting the objects that I want to keep. Now you'll notice that all these little stray objects are still selected here. So we could just go ahead and hit delete. But I'm going to show the other way as well. I like to go into outline mode so I can see. You really can see all the little stray objects here a little bit more clearer. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, select that, select that, select that. So this is just another way of doing that. It's whatever your preference is. So let's go ahead and hit delete. And I'm going to get back out of outline mode. And now let's just go ahead and press play in the Actions panel. Okay. So it's really easy, but I really like that feature of being able to get in there and get it as clean as we can. Of course, when writing these actions, my goal is to let Illustrator handle all that. Unfortunately, it just wasn't possible. So there is a little bit of human interactivity there. So if we look now, we have a beautiful, nice, clean cast shadow, nice, clean, darker shade, highlight, and then our outline and so forth. So now that we have that, we can always add some colors to this, which is always fun. And so I'm just going to go ahead and show how these swatches also work. I've got two sets here. So if we start at the bottom, I've got the red. Let's go ahead and make that shadow transparent. I'm just kind of retouching on what we covered in the basic. And now I can go ahead and select this dark orange color. So if you look at the swatches, you'll kind of see how it's laid out. We have background, and then the shades, outline, and then fill. So now I can just go over here. I'm going to select this cream color and blue. And so that kind of shows you how the swatches kind of work. If we want, we can switch it around and try the blue up here. So this kind of gives you an idea of what I was striving for when providing these swatches. Okay, so our next video or segment, we're going to talk about scaling. Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about how scaling works with Old Stock 2. Now I've gone ahead and created this little chart here, and you'll find this PDF enclosed in the folder of Old Stock 2. You can go ahead and just print that out and use it as a handy reference guide. So the way it works is I built the actions to accommodate a 1-inch object. And as you go down in size, the effect gets greater. And if we go up in size, you can see the effect gets smaller. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I took all these and I scaled them all up to exactly 2 inches. So you can see how great the effects are. again, at a ½ inch letter or object, you get a really big effect. And as we progress up in size, it starts to get smaller and smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of how that works. Okay, so I've got some text on the artboard here, and I've got it scaled up to the capital J here is at just a little over 3 inches, like 3 1/8. And we're going to make this into just a pretend boat lettering job. So I'm going to go ahead and select my text here, and I'll be using Old Stock 2 Write Basic, and I'm going to use Shadow Outline No Cast. So I'll go ahead and press play, and we'll just kind of zip through this here. Okay, for my outline, I'm going to go ahead and set that to 0.09, and we can hit preview here to see how it looks. And I think that looks good, so I'll say OK. Now you can really see how much smaller the effect is. The larger the text, the smaller the effect, and then the smaller the text, the larger the effect. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and delete the outline here. And this is a perfect opportunity to show how one color shade works. I want the shade here, the shadow here, to be just one solid color. So I'm going to go one color shade, and I'm going to press play in the actions panel, and we'll hit continue. Okay, so now we've got a solid shade going on here. So let's have some fun with this. I'm going to go ahead and make the text a real nice dark navy blue color. And we can change the color of the shadow. I'm going to go ahead and lighten that up a little bit. Okay, so now we can go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and group everything. And we'll go Effect, Warp, Arc. And we can do Preview. And I think that's a nice arc there. So I'll say OK. And then if we want, we can put the port name on there. I've already got it laid out here. And there you go. So just to recap, the larger your letters or object, the smaller the effects will be. And the smaller your text or objects, the greater the effect will be. Okay, in this video, we're going to show how to use Old Stock 2 in a graphic design setting. Now, I've gone ahead and created this logo here from one of my fonts called Desire. And I'm going to be using Old Stock 2 Write Pro. And the action we'll be using is Shadow Outline with Cast 3. So let's go ahead and select all the text here. And we'll go ahead and press play in the Actions panel. And now for our offset path, I'm going to choose 0.04. And we can hit the preview button just to see how it looks. I think it looks good, so I'll go ahead and say OK. Now this is a rather complex logo. It's going to have a lot of pieces to it, from the shadows to the highlights and so forth. So we're going to have a little bit more than normal offending colors. So for the sake of time in this video, I'm just going to zip right through it. I'm not going to worry about deleting any stray objects or trying to do any cleanup, again, just for the sake of time. So I'm going to go ahead and start selecting the offending colors, and you can tell what they are because they're a lot darker than the other shades of gray here. So as I go through, I'm going to hit Control 3, and if you're on a Mac, it would be Command 3, and we're just going to be just hiding the pieces as we go. Okay. Just kind of zip right through this here. Okay, it's looking good. I think we got all the pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and press play. Okay, the next step is going to be the cast shadow. We're just going to go ahead again really fast through here and just deselect all the pieces we want to keep. Again, if we were doing this professionally for a client, of course we would take the time to get our artwork as clean as possible. So everything is selected. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm just going to go ahead and start deselecting all the pieces of the cast shadow that I want to keep. Okay, so it looks good to me. Looks like we've pretty much got all the pieces we don't want selected. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete key here. And sometimes what I'll do is a little tip here is I'll hit Control Z. I'll do undo. I just want to make sure that I did get all the pieces correctly. So it looks like I did. So I'll hit delete, and we'll just press play, and we'll just continue on with our action here. Okay, so now we've got shadow outline with cast 3 applied to our logo. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to select the text here, and I'm going to go edit, copy, and I'm going to create a new layer because I want to run another action on this. So I'm going to go ahead and say new layer, and I'm going to lock the layer, which is layer 3 in this video here. Layer 3 has all this artwork. I don't want the action that I'm going to run, which is the inside shadow, to be applied to it. So I'm going to go ahead and lock it. And now on layer 4, I'm going to go edit, paste in front. Okay, so now we've got our text here, and I'm going to run inside shadow. So we'll go ahead and press play, and we'll let old stock go to work here. Okay, so now we've got an inside shadow. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock the layer that has our artwork, and I want to run shadow transparent. And the reason being is when we add some colors to this, I want this cast shadow and inside shadow to be transparent so the colors come through. So let's go ahead and run shadow transparent, and we'll just let it go through. Okay, so now that's done. Now for the fun part, let's go ahead and add some colors to this. Again, the nice thing about old stock is everything is grouped and separated for you. So I've gone ahead and made some colors up for this little demonstration. So I'm just going to go ahead and start adding the colors. For the darker shade here, I'm going to use this kind of burnt orange color. And then I'll grab the highlight and I'll add this lighter orange color. And then for the outline, I'm going to use this cream color. Now for the text, I've gone ahead and made this really nice gradient color. Everything is grouped, so I'm going to ungroup that. And I'm just going to manually zip through this here and just apply the gradient manually. Again, I'm doing this really fast for the video. If you're doing this for a client, obviously you would take the time. So we'll just kind of keep plugging along here. Okay, now for the O. Okay, that's starting to look really nice. Okay, now for the IA. And we can always do the flourishes here. So I'll just go ahead and add that. Again, I'm doing this very fast for the video. Okay, I think that looks good. So we'll go ahead and do these two flourish bars here. Yeah, I think that looks good. So I've gone ahead and actually created a background here. I made a little fake sign for this here. So let's go ahead and put that in. Now you can see how Old Stock 2 was used for a graphic design setting. These tools actually allow the designer to create really complex shades very fast and efficient. To do this all to do it manually would take hours. Okay, so now for the next video, I'm going to show how to use Old Stock 2 in a type design setting. Old Stock 2 is not just for graphic designers, but for type designers as well. I created a font called Versatile Bold, which you see here. It's a 7-layer font. 5 of those layers were created using Old Stock 2, and I'd like to show how that works. So the first font that was created was the cast shadow. So you can see here I've got the cast shadow. And then the next font that stacks on top of that is the shadow font. And then the next one would be the highlight. And then you would have the outline. And then you would have the base. And then the inside shadow. So we can see here all the layers stacked up. It creates a real pleasing effect. Well, that concludes this video on using Old Stock 2. Thanks for watching.